Hello everybody, I'm your baking queen and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make French macarons. Now let's get one thing straight. These are macarons, not macaroons. Macaroons are a coconut-based cookie. These are a meringue-based cookie. So with that aside, you're going to need a few ingredients to get started. You're going to need some granulated sugar, about a quarter cup. You're going to need 3 egg whites. You're going to want to do these and then let these sit out and come to room temperature. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. You're going to need to do some cream of tartar. You're going to use about a teaspoon of this. You're going to need some confectioner sugar, 1 2/3 cups to be exact. You're going to need 1 cup of almond flour. And then I'm going to do mine and make them a chocolate macaron. So I'm going to use some cocoa powder in my recipe today. You're also going to need your mixer. You're going to need a really good sifter. You'll see why in a minute. So gather your ingredients and let's get started. Alright everybody, so we're going to have to start by sifting our sugar and our almond flour. So you're going to want to get you a bowl and your sifter. Now my sifter fits right inside this bowl really nice and easy, and that's kind of what you want to look for. These bowls, I love them. They were actually a birthday present from my mother. I believe the brand is Priority Chef. They come in different sizes, so it's like a little set, and they have this wonderful bottom to them, so it's like a non-stick skid bowl, so it'll stay in place so you can mix and do all kinds of wonderful things. I love these bowls. So just put your sifter on top like so, and I kind of do a half and half, but it's not a big recipe today, so I'm going to go ahead and put all of my powdered sugar in my sifter, and I'm going to put all of my almond flour along with it. Now I found this to be the easiest because the almond flour and the powdered sugar mix together while you're sifting, making sifting a little easier, because this is probably the most tedious part of this whole process. So I have my bowl scraper here. I'm going to use my rounded edge because I don't want to mess up my straight edge if I ever want to use this again. You can also use your other side too, depending on how big your actual sifter is. And you just want to like push this through. Now sometimes you can use your hands, and I usually use like the end part of my knuckle here, and I'm just going to sift the sugar and the flour through the sifter. And the reason for this is you want your flour and your sugar to be super sifted, as fine as possible. And this is going to make very nice macarons. They're going to be very smooth, have that really nice look that everybody kind of knows a macaron to have. So this is a very important step in this whole process. And you just keep going until you get all of it sifted through your sifter. Okay. So this is going to take me a minute, so I'm going to finish this really quick and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so I finished sifting all my flour and my sugar together. Now I wanted to show you, so your almond flour is going to have like some leftover granules usually. These are the bigger pieces of it. I mean, it's almond flour, it's almonds, and they're ground down to create this flour. Now with the macaron, you don't want, even though they look really small, you don't want these big pieces, these big chunks in your macaron. So you have a couple choices. Like this isn't a whole lot, so you can just leave this out. You don't want to put this in with your sifted flour. You don't want to do that. So you can either leave this out, or if you have like a coffee grinder or a really good small blender or food processor, you can put this in there and try to get it ground down as fine as you can. But you don't want the big granules. You don't want that, because that's going to make your macarons very bumpy looking and stuff. So you can just, put this to the side. I'm just going to get rid of that because it isn't a whole lot. But there it is, our flour, our sugar, it's all sifted, ready to go. So now we're ready to beat up our egg whites. Alright everybody, so now we're going to start whipping up our egg whites. So my egg whites have been sitting out in this bowl. Now I'm using fresh egg whites, and I prefer to use fresh egg whites, especially making macarons. You can definitely use the egg whites that come in a carton that are already separated out for you. Now be mindful that usually those types of eggs, whether they're egg whites, egg yolks, whatever, have a few additives in them, basically just to keep them last longer on the shelf in the carton, but they are usually pretty okay and okay to use for stuff like this. Just be mindful that your recipe may be a little different, and fresh egg whites are just always better. They fluff up really nice, they taste better, all that good stuff. So we're going to take our 3 egg whites that should be roughly room temperature. They don't have to be exactly room temperature. The thing about that is they fluff up better, especially for these macarons. So I'm going to put up my machine. I got my whip attachment on, and we're going to go ahead and start whipping up these egg whites. So you want to whip up the egg whites a little bit until they start kind of frothing before you add in your other ingredients. This process can take a minute sometimes. Alright, as you can see, our egg whites are starting to froth up a little bit, so I'm going to take my 1/4 cup of sugar, and I'm going to add that into my egg whites. And then we're going to take 1/2 teaspoon of our cream of tartar. Yep. And add that in there. The cream of tartar is going to help stabilize your egg whites. Now remember, I'm making a chocolate macaron. So I'm going to put about 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder into my egg whites. So if you wanted to flavor or color your macarons, this is the stage you would want to do that at. I'm just going to scrape the side real quick. And continue mixing this until we get a nice stiff peak. Alright, so it looks like we have our stiff peaked whipped egg whites formed. Let's see how stiff we are. Oh yes, that's got a nice stiffness to it. And that's what you want. You want a nice stiff peak egg white, and I'll explain that to you in the next step. Alright everybody, so we've got our egg whites all nice and whipped up here. We got our flour ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold the egg whites into our flour. So I'm going to use my bowl here and I'm going to dump my flour on top of my egg whites. Then I'm going to take a spatula and you're going to fold it. You don't want to mix it because you don't want to lose too much of the air that you just whipped into your egg whites. And that's also why you want to do a nice stiff peak when you're whipping up your egg whites, because you're going to lose a good bit of the air that you've whipped into it, and then that way you still have something that it's going to hold on to, and then it'll make a really nice macaron cookie. So you just want to keep on kind of folding it in. Make sure you're getting all the flour that's probably on the bottom and hiding from you, because you don't want to knock all the air out and then realize you still got flour sitting kind of on the bottom in the corner of your bowl. I'm going to knock some of this air. That's the other thing too. So with these cookies, you want to find like a happy medium, because if you have too much air left in it, they're going to explode. They're going to be all over the place. If you knock too much air out, they're going to be flat and runny, and you don't want that either. So this recipe is a little different because normally you mix it until you get this runny, consistent batter. And this one, you don't want it to be too runny, I have learned. So I think we're just about there, because I have this nice kind of goop looking thing going on here. Where it's going to pipe, it's going to hold its shape, and so what you want to do is, your test is if you can move it, and it kind of runs back into itself, but it's not so runny that you have like water or like a liquid. So I think I have a pretty good product here. It's got some coloring from my cocoa powder. Yes, I think I'm happy with this because it looks like it's gonna mold back into itself pretty good. Alright, so we're not gonna mix this anymore. I think I'm gonna stop right there. Alright, so now I'm gonna set up my pan real quick. So I have my sheet pan here, and I have some parchment paper, which is what I'm going to use to bake my macarons on. Some people use a slip mat. If you want to use that, that's perfectly fine. If you don't have one, parchment paper works just as good. This little trick, if you want your cookies, if you're going to do a sandwich cookie, which most people do, you want them to be uniform. You want them to all be about the same size. So this little trick you can do, so take your parchment paper and flip it over, so the side that you're not going to bake on, and then find the size cookie you want to make. So I have these round rings that I use to like do biscuits and different things with. So this is the size cookie I think I want to do. So I'm going to take my marker, I'm going to find my spot, and make sure you do this so that they're spaced correctly too. And I'm just going to make a circle where I'm going to do my cookies. Now these usually don't spread all that much, so you can usually fit a good number of these on a tray and decently close to each other. So you just go around, make your marks, and this is your guide for your cookies. So in this way, you have slightly more uniformed size cookies, because you're gonna be piping these cookies. All right, so I have all my circles. on my piece of paper here. And we're going to take that, we're going to flip it over and put it on our cookie sheet. So now this is ready, and then I have my little marks that I can see through the paper, and that's where I'm going to put my cookies, and I know what size to do. Okay, so now we're ready to pipe. So I have a piping bag here. I've got a round tip, and it's rather large. I mean, it's pretty good size. It's not huge, but it's a good size tip. My scissors, and then our cookie batter that we just made. So I'm going to cut the tip off of my bag so I can put my piping tip in there, and it's a rather large tip, so I'm going to get rid of a good portion of the bag so my tip will fit in here. Okay, get rid of my scissors. Bring over my cookie sheet that we have ready to go with our marks on it and everything. Gonna open my bag like so. And just kind of fill it up with my cookie dough. Try not to smush out too much of the air as you're doing this. It's a little difficult, I know. Alright, so you got this in your bag. It's going to be a little runny, but then you're just going to take and you're going to follow your guides. And you kind of want to try to not do what I'm doing, but swoop those ends. Oh, I just messed that one up. Because the cookies should fall back into each other, the dough. And that's what's going to give you a nice, smooth macaron. Like I'm making Hershey Kisses here today. Okay. You can always go back and kind of try to get rid of those kiss tops, because that's going to give you a smoother cookie. Another thing you can do too is take your pan and bang it. And sometimes that'll get it out. Not always, like we still have a little bit of a kiss top on this one that I just not fixing very well. But so yeah, so then now what we're going to do is you're going to let these sit for about an hour. And what that's going to do is it's going to create the crust on the top of your cookie. And that's going to give you that nice, smooth macaron top that you're looking for. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do this for about an hour, let these sit out, and then we're going to bake them. So I'll see you in about an hour. Alright guys, so our macarons are ready to go. It's been about an hour. We have a nice, smooth top to these. See the kind of the smoothness. There are some little bumps to these ones, but they're pretty good. Usually you can give them a little touch and you can feel the crust that's formed, and that's what you want. So, all right, everybody. So here's our macarons. They've come out of the oven. They got some nice feet on them, as you can see. They're kind of nice and smooth. Now this is not the test batch. This is another batch I made. I nicked the side of this one over here, as you can see. But no, so my oven cooks them very nicely at 285 for 12 minutes. So that's why we do the test batch. So I just wanted to show you that they came out really, really nice. So we're going to have a really nice sandwiched macaron treat. Alright everybody, so here's our final product, our macarons all assembled. We put our praline hazelnut buttercream inside the middle between the two cookies. We have that little bit of cocoa powder inside the actual cookie. So just all those flavors, almond, chocolate, praline, hazelnut. Oh my goodness, these turned out so good. And then just the look of our little macaron itself, just the smoothness, the feet, just the whole thing. It's very pretty. You can always decorate the top of these with a little bit of dust or I don't know, sprinkled something. You want to put on there the glitter just to give them that little extra pop depending on what occasion that you're going to, party you're taking them to. I hope I inspired you to make some in your own kitchen, giving you some tips and tricks on to get that perfect macaron, even though you're not in France. So until next time everybody, just keep baking.